So guys, welcome to the new part of the water sphere tutorial from JangaFX for LiquidGen. Last time we created the simulation and now it is time to start understanding how to export the stuff in other software, because last time we rendered using the LiquidGen rasterizer, but it would be nice to know how to move the simulation data to other tools. So there are a lot of stuff to talk about, and I don't want to create so long tutorials. So this week we are going to talk about how to export to 3ds Max and Udemy, and then next week we are in holidays. So in 2 weeks we are going to release a new part, the last one, to talk about Unreal and Blender. So let's start talking about how to export the stuff here in LiquidGen. You know that you have not to simulate and cache stuff because it is really fast. So you're able to do everything. For example, during the rendering, you are going to simulate and render. And about the exporter, you're going to simulate and export at the same time. We have here inside the simulation the particles and the mesh, so we can export both stuff. If you like to export the simulation here, just to go faster, I can lower the resolution. Let's go for something really simple, so 0.05. So if you like to export this mesh and take no care about the foam and the other particles, you can, for example, click over mesh, move the mouse using the left mouse button, and then you can create the export mesh. Okay, this node will be able to export the liquid mesh. That's really simple. You have essentially to select the directory. So for example, here you see that I have a mesh and you say select folder. Then you have to write the name. You can use, for example, the token here for the stuff. You can use directly to have automatic naming, or you can directly write it. So you can call, for example, liquid mesh, and then you see that here you have the possibility to export as ABC, FBX, OBJ, and you see the naming. For the moment, we are going to use the ABC. Then you have to choose the first frame of the simulation you like to export. In our case, for example, 0, and the last one. Let's say that you are going to export 1000 frame. Okay, that's all. And there is something really important about the mesh, because it is going to export the vertex data, but you have to export the velocity if you like to have the motion blur in rendering. So if you like to export also the velocity data, you have to select this one. Okay. There is something you can do inside Udemy. I will show you how, because just to make a test, I exported without the velocity, so we can understand which is the problem. By the way, if you like to have the velocity and use the motion blur in rendering, or you like to export the velocity data, you have to use the export velocity, and then you have just to select, obviously there is not directory, so let's say that we like to use this one, and then you have to export now, press export now. Cache can be really big. Just to give you an idea, if we go inside the folder where I exported the test for you, you see that, for example, the liquid sphere with not the final resolution, if I remember, I exported at 0.03, if I remember, for 1000 frames took 96 gigabytes. So it can be really big, by the way. And that's all for the mesh. Let's think about the particles. So we can export also particles. Let's do the same thing, and you see that we have the possibility to create and export particles node. Okay, the transform node is useful because if you are using, for example, an Alembic import or something that is importing data from the other software, you can use the same transform connected here to have the same position, same scaling in output, okay? By the way, for the moment, it's not a problem. So here, it works in a similar way. You have to choose for the directory. Let's say that this one is okay. And then you have to choose the naming, the frame, let's say 1000. And then you have the possibility to export different stuff for, so first one, liquid. If you say to export the main liquid, you are going to export essentially, points. Okay, and remove the waterfall. We are exporting the fluid particles. Okay, you can do it, and it can be useful. For example, if you like to create the mesh, for example, in Houdini, using the VDB stuff in the side effects software, but the VDB cache, the cache will be really huge. So it depends on the stuff you are doing. It depends if you can have a really huge cache on your HD or cloud or whatever else. So for the moment, we are not going to export the liquid mesh in particles. So let's go back here. And we are going to talk about the Whitewater. So there are three stuff: the spray, the foam, and the bubbles. So you can export everything together. For example, you have just to select everything and then say export. Let's say that you have the name, for example, this one, okay, and export, and everything will stay in the same file. But I think that the most powerful way is to export each stuff on a single file, because in this way, for example, you can use the bubble to drive some kind of bubbles, mesh bubbles in your 3D software. And for example, for spray and foam, you can decide to use it in a different way, rendered in the 3D software. You're going to import everything. So the idea is to use, for example, include spray, and then this one can be named, let's say, for example, sphere. Let's remove the token, and then you go for adding spray. So we know that this one is just a spray, and you see that's an alembic. The nice thing is that you have not to remember to export the velocity, because the velocity is exported automatically, okay? So then you click over export now. In this case, you will have different nodes. So for example, this one can be renamed, let's say, out spray, because this one is to export the spray. And then you are going to use, for example, a clone of this one. So we are going just to change something. So let's say, for example, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and we're going to connect here and say F2, and this one is foam. You have to change the naming, so this one will be foam, and you're going to export just the foam. Then another copy, Ctrl C, Ctrl V, and then same connection. This one is bubbles. You go to change the naming. Please remember to change the naming, because it is going to write over the others. Okay, so bubbles, and you go to export just the bubbles. Let's say that all this stuff is, let's say, create a comment, and we can call export particles, and you have it. Okay, then you go to export everything, and in my case, if you go to check, we have the mesh, we have the bubbles, 51 gigabytes, we have the foam, 160 gigabytes, and then we have the spray, near 2 gigabytes. Okay, So that's really simple. It takes just a little bit of time when the cache is really big, but it works really quiet, in a really quiet, nice way. Then let's imagine that we like to import everything in 3ds Max. First of all, let's go to set 3ds Max to let's say 60 FPS, because our mesh was simulated at 60 FPS. Let's say that we have 2000 frames. Okay, and then we can start to import stuff. So the first one will be import, and we go in the right folder. So LiquidGen export mesh, and we go to import. You can essentially set to use the UV, the velocity if you exported the velocity, and then you say okay, import. Scaling is low, so if you like to work with the right scaling, you should scale everything 100 times, but in this case it's not a problem because we are not working with a real world scale. And you see that we have our meshing that is working perfectly. Okay, if you like, you can take care about the mesh, for example, using just over the mesh, press X, and then you can use the relax modifier. Not sure why this is not applying. Let's go to select from here, relax. Okay, so this one can be a little bit slow. You see that as soon as you are picking it, you see some variation here because the mesh is not so high quality. You should export something with a better quality. By the way, you can rise up the relax value and then use an higher iteration here, and then you have a more liquid mesh look. So you see that if we go with set to on and to off, the mesh is working in a nicer way. Okay, so if we pick this one and say create a preview animation, that's okay, everything is okay by default, and then create. It will take a little bit of time because we have a lot of frames. So we can play the version we have for the moment because we have a lot of frames. So you see that it's moving in the right way and it works really nice. Okay, so here you can do what you like. So if you have, for example, VRay, you can set VRay as rendering engine, and then you can set the lighting. Let's say, for example, this one, and then we say that's a DOM. We say to use a map. We do something really simple because we are not taking care about the rendering. So let's go for a VRay bitmap, and then let's see if I have something. Let's try with this one. That's really simple, but that's okay. One for the multiplier. And if I go to render, we'll have obviously a simple mesh, and then we have to, you see, and then we have to create a material. For example, let's say VRay material. Let's call it water. We do something really simple, so we are not taking care about how it works and how it looks. Okay, and you see that we have the water material, and obviously you can work with the water as you prefer, so you can take care about it in a really nice way. Let's talk about the problem we can have in 3ds Max. Let's go for clay, so we have no transparency. The problem is related to the particles, because 3ds Max is not able to import particles with ABC. So that's a really big problem. So we have just a solution using VRay. With VRay, you can go in the VRay objects there, VRay, and you can use the VRayProxy to import the particles. So we do a test just with one of the frames. So for example, let's say the spray, because it is smaller. Okay, you see that we have it here. So essentially, first of all, it is in a wrong position because I created it manually. Let's say to use the center, pivot, and you see that the first problem is that we have to take care about the position. So I think it's using also a different rotation. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. So let's go here, and you see that it works. So you see that we have the spray moving. We have various possibility here. You see that we have the speed, we have the scaling, we have how many particles you like to see in the viewport. That's just in the viewport, obviously, it's not in the renderer. The problem is related to the other stuff. Let's say that we have no refraction, so this one is visible, okay? And let's remove also the reflection. Let's go back in the render and say to render it. That's the particles. The problem is related with the scaling, so let's go here in the width multiplier. Let's say 0.05. Okay, it is still too big. Let's say 1, and let's say that here we have, for example, 50 millions or something like that, because I like to load everything. Points are still too much big, so we have to go smaller, and then it should work. By the way, the problem is that it is blue. Let's say that this one is the spray. You can use a material, or you can directly change the color here if you are not trying to do something complex about the lighting. You see that it's starting to work. Okay, let's say that we copy this one as a copy, and this one is the foam. And we go to pick the foam that is bigger. Okay. Okay, you see that it is visible. Okay. Let's say that we try to render, and everything is starting to play. So we have it. Obviously, you can take care about it in the right way. That's not a problem. Essentially, the problem is related to, let's say that here we have back reflection, refraction, and let's say that we have a fog color. We do something like that. Let's see if it is enough, because the scaling is not right. Okay, we can do something that is less visible, but you see that we have the water and we have also the particles. So the problem is that essentially in this way we are not talking about particles, because we are using the VRayProxy to load it. So we are talking about instances. Okay, so you can render it, you can take care about the look, but you can't manipulate everything about these particles because they are not particles. So this data cannot be tweaked, for example, in particle flow, tide flow, Phoenix, or stuff like that. Okay. So guys, sorry, but I had a crash over my workstation, so I had to import everything here in 3ds Max, and I had to pre-built some stuff in Udini too, and we'll see later how to move forward. So don't worry if we have something that is maybe redone because I had a crash. So we have everything inside 3ds Max as we were saying. Let's imagine that we have a camera, so I will try to do something a little bit different because, you know, we are missing some stuff. So let's say that maybe that's our point of view, and we go to have maybe something like 130 millimeters, and then we go to move the camera to have something better. The engine is VRay. Let's go to create something about the lighting. So for, if you know 3ds Max, I'm redoing some stuff for sure because we done it before. By the way, let's set to 1. I'm not going to create something so complex, so you know, if you like to play with 3ds Max and that's your software, you can do it. So it's just something to make a test. Let's go to see details. Okay, 8 key, we can go for something fast, so maybe this one. Okay, let's go back in the render, and that's okay. We go to have something really simple, so maybe just to make a better test, that's okay. Maybe we go just to create something more interesting. So if we have this one as an instance, this one is the DOM. We can make a copy here, and let's call it reflection, and we go to copy here as an instance to have an higher reflectivity, and we can do in the same way, for example, using here the multiplier. By the way, let's go to see what's going on in the scene. Okay, obviously the particles are back really big, so we go to pick just this area, and let's say that here we have 0.01, and the same for the other 0.01. Okay, it is better. Yep. Okay, we can take care about it later if you like to have something more visible or less visible. This one is the DOM light, so we can call it LGT DOM, and we say that it's not visible, so we go in the option and set to invisible. Now we need a water material. Let's say water, and we say that we like to have a foam material, something really simple. Again, you know, it is something you will do on your own. So this one is the water, and we can just directly pick the VRay material, and we go for preset, and then we can tweak it. So don't take care about it, it's not a problem. We're going to do something just in a fast way. Okay, so that's the water. By the way, let's go to have for the moment no refraction, so we see just the material with the reflection. Okay, you see that's the surface, and we get to have a little bit of bluish. Okay, So we should have, I'm not going in the real-time render just because it takes a little bit of time, and I'm also simulating some stuff on the ground, so it can be really slow. Just a little bit of roughness, and let's say that this one is used. It's the second one, and we say to use at 2, so we'll have higher reflectivity over the surface. Not sure if we need it or not, but maybe we can leave it this way, and then if we need we can tweak it. And then we start to have back the transparency. So if we go for something like that, we'll have the transparency, and we'll see also inside, obviously. If we go to have a fog color to something like water, you will be able to see the density of the water, you see? Okay. So let's imagine that we have something like that, and we go to have a lower refraction, or maybe we can just say that the depth is really low, you see, so we have more density and less visibility, and then we go just a little bit more over the bluish, and then we say that we have less refraction, sorry, so we have more watercolor. Maybe that's so. Let's go for something more, and we can double check how it works. It's a little bit better. Obviously you can do more, by the way, again, you can do as you prefer. It's up to you. You can create different materials, you can create the materials in a different way, so everything is really up to you. Maybe we can have just a little bit of glossiness, so we see the stuff in a blurred way inside the water. It takes a little bit more time to prepare something like that. And then we have the foam. We can essentially pick both and assign a shader, and then we go for material. Let's leave to something like that, so we see how it looks. Okay, you see that now the shading is better, so maybe we can pick just this area and see what's going on. We can pick both, and I think we can go just a little bit lower with the scaling to 0.05 for both. Remember that we are not talking about particles, so we are talking about instances. That's not bad. We can try something, but I'm not sure it's going to work in a really nice way. By the way, let's try to go lower to 0.05 for both. We can see how it is moving. Maybe it's a little bit better, you know. Then we have to maybe we can do something really simple. You can do, for example, something related to the reflection, and we get to a glossiness, and maybe then we can use also the scattering or stuff like that. By the way, I'm not going to create something so complex. It's just, you know, a test to show you how you can play with the stuff here. Okay, that's not bad. And I mean, maybe we can just add another light. Let's say we get to tweak it to be plain. This one can stay up the sphere. and the scaling will be different, obviously. So let's go for something that is not so big. Remember that we didn't scale the stuff that are coming inside the scene, so obviously the scaling can be not so precise. Then let's try to go in real time, because I like to tweak the multiplier and maybe also the color. So let's try with 10, maybe that's too much. Let's go for 5, that's better, and maybe we can add a little bit more glossiness over the reflection. Let's see if we have no reflection and specularity. You see, we are using just the, and this one is not visible, so we are going to use just the diffuse. Okay, so we are just lighting the stuff, and we can go lower, I think, because I like to not lose the quality here. I think that's what you are achieving at the moment. And in our scene in LiquidGen, we had a sphere inside, so just to say that this one is the LGT key, and we had a sphere, so we can do the same stuff. We can have a sphere inside, and the sphere was essentially white and reflective. It needs to be smaller. Okay, it should work. Let's call it sphere and assign, and this one is a basic in sphere, just to know that this one is the one inside. A little bit more segments to be more precise, and then this one is assigned. We go for a VRay material, and we have this color, and then we have just essentially a reflection. So then we can try again to render, so we should see something inside the volume. We can see some differences, I think, but maybe we need a little bit more refraction, just a little bit. And we have this kind of volume inside, but let's see what happens if the volume is smaller, because we have also the refraction, so you see that now we see some differences over the volume. Just a small test to see if we have less visibility inside. Okay, maybe that's too much. 0.015, and then we have it. If you like, you can have more light, so I mean, you can have, for example, here a new light, and this one is a copy. We go to rotate in this way. Let's go in real time. We'll have more lighting there, but this one can have a different color, so we can find something that we like. So, you know, it is up to you if you like to go to something like that, or maybe something more bluish. By the way, maybe we can go for something more bluish, and then let's see if we have another, sorry, 5 maybe. Okay, you know, that's something really simple. I'm not going to create something so complex, so that's okay. I get to save, close here, and let's see, for example, when we have more particles, what's going on. Okay, you see that's nice enough. We can go, I think that we can go lower with the size for the particles too, but again, it is up to you to find the best compromise for your result. We should have some kind of problem here with the motion blur because the sphere has no velocity, but again, I have to say that the result is quite nice, so let's go for an higher resolution and we get to render this frame to see what's going on. And I think that at this scale it seems clear that we should go lower, still lower with the scale. Let's try with 0.003 and render just this area. Yeah, I think it's moving in a better way, like this. Just to make a test, not sure, but we can try to pick the camera. Let's see if we can do something, but not sure the effects we can have. We can go here in the render and we go in the camera and we can try to have the motion blur and see what's going on. Okay, see, it is working, so it is not bad. Okay, so I can leave the rendering to have the final result. So again, we go to save, Control S, and we render it. Okay, you see that's not final, and obviously we are not talking about the rendering, how to tweak the stuff and stuff like that. It is just a fast way to see how the data can be manipulated and imported in 3ds Max. So let's stop, and that's all for 3ds Max. Let's go back to Houdini to see how we can do something similar in a really simple way. Again, it is not a tutorial about how to work inside 3ds Max and Houdini, so it is up to you to create the final result. It is just a really simple test.